Good morning, guys. Today we are going to be looking at Module 1, Unit 1, Lesson 2. We are continuing on with Esperanza Rising, so we're going to start getting into this book today. So, reviewing the learning targets. As we look at these, we have to think about what they might mean. So, I can describe how pages 1 through 3 of Esperanza Rising, that's what we'll be reading today, how they continue to fit into the overall structure of the story. So, how do they fit into the structure of the story? When we look at structure, it makes me think of a building, a structure, and all the pieces that go together that make that building and make it strong. So in this case, structure would mean the pieces of a story that make the story. So there are certain pieces that actually go to a story that when you put them together, they make that story. So we start off with something like the beginning of the story. We know we need a beginning. We know that we need some action that goes after the beginning, your rising action. We know there has to be a climax, which is where everything comes together towards the end of the story and everything that you've been building up towards finally gets resolved. And then we have the falling action, which is really quick, and the resolution, which is in the conclusion. So we have all these pieces and structures of the story, the plot, the problem, the solution. They all go together to make that story. So the structure is the pieces of the story that make the story a story. So we are going to look at how these pieces fit into Esperanza Rising and how they build the story up. That's what this first learning target means. The next one, I can select a research book that I want to read. Okay, so in that case, I will put also on Facebook a lesson of how to get into the research books that you want to read. So let's move forwards. We talk about our module guiding questions. This was part of your homework, and I wanted you to think about these things before we get into the book. So what are human rights and how can they be threatened? We talked about human rights being how people treat you. How people treat you. What rights do you have as a human being? How should, let's put that word should in, how should people treat you? What is the right way to do something? What are your rights? How should people treat you on a regular basis? And the way that they treat you, how can you be threatened by somebody else? So if they treat you unfairly, how can they be threatened? How can people treat you unfairly? What are the ways that threaten how people treat you, your human rights? Okay? The other guided question was, how can we use writing to raise awareness of human rights? So this part writing, we can do newspapers, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's all different kinds of platforms that raise awareness or allow other people to learn about human rights. So what are some of the ways that people are going to raise awareness of human rights, of how people are treated? We see a lot in the news today. News is one of them. If you use the newspaper, we see a lot of that of people raising awareness of human rights, how people are treated and why they're treated that way and who's doing what to whom. Okay, so these are the questions that are going to go throughout the story of Esperanza Rising, and we're going to talk more about how her rights were being threatened. So in order to start looking at human rights, we need to work to become ethical people. Ethical people is your morals, how good you are as a person. One of the things that you need to be ethical is respect. I show respect. This means I appreciate the abilities, qualities, and achievements of others, and I treat myself, others, and the environment with care. That's showing respect. So what does respect mean in your own words? It could look like taking notes during class. So it could look like taking notes. It could look like not speaking when somebody else is talking. while others are talking. Okay, what does it sound like? It sounds like saying please and thank you. So manners, please and thank you. It's nice, kind words. Okay, it's treating people with respect. So these are the things that we talk about when we talk about treating people with respect. Now, in your reading notebook, in your interactive notebook, if you're taking notes, we are going to add this information in. So, I show respect. What does that mean? Treating others the way I want to be treated. Okay? That is respect. Or at least in my own words, that is respect. So we said what it looks like, right? What does it look like? Helping others, helping people. It looks like cleaning up after myself. Instead of my mom having to clean up after myself, it looks like showing up to class. These are all signs of respect. So what does it sound like? We said it sounds like kind words. It sounds like kind words. It sounds like manners. Sometimes it sounds like silence, quiet. Okay, so these are some of the things that it looks like, it sounds like, and what it means. So as we go further, we're going to add to this. So it's not just going to be I show respect. There's going to be another one that adds on to the bottom of that. But at this time, we are just talking about respect. Okay? One of our next things, and let me get back to it. Okay? One of the next slides that we talk about, we actually talk about close reading. This text we are going to close read. Well, what does that mean? Close reading is a way that we analyze the text. Analyze means to take apart the text, to make it make sense. So we are going to close read this text. We read small chunks of the text slowly. So I'm not going to read the whole text in one sitting. We're going to read a little bit, and then we're going to talk about the gist. The gist is one of those words that we're going to talk about a lot. The gist is kind of like the main idea. It's 1 to 2 sentences. 1 to 2 sentences about what you just read. If somebody asks you what the movie was about, you give them 1 to 2 sentences about what you just saw. Okay? That's the gist. I'm not going to tell you the whole movie. If I tell you the whole movie, you won't watch it. So I'm going to give you a really quick little tidbit about what I just saw, what I just read, and that way you understand kind of what the story's about. It's kind of helping me kind of understand what the story's about. Okay? We also use strategies to figure out the meaning of words. Strategies like putting words that make sense We put words that make sense in. So when I come to a word I don't know, I'm going to stick a word that it sounds like it goes in there based on the context clues that we read. I'm going to put another word in there that it makes sense so that it goes with the story and I can understand what the story means. So that helps me figure out the meaning of the words. Okay? We talk in groups about this text. We are not just going to read this text and not talk about it. We're going to talk about the text. We're going to ask questions in order to understand what just happened in the text. And that way we understand what we're reading. We're also going to listen to questions that other people ask. There's that respect again. Listening to questions that others ask about the text, because it might be a question I haven't thought about. It might make my brain go in a different direction that I would have never even thought might happen. Okay? We go back in the text to find the answers that we're looking for, and we write notes about the text. Okay? Part of this is your interactive notebook. If you're not using the interactive notebook, it's keeping nice notes in your reading notebook. Okay? We write notes or answer questions about the text, and we talk to our partner or group about the answers that we find. Okay? Discussion norms to remember is listen carefully, wait for your turn to speak. Don't interrupt, so don't just unmute. Make sure you mute back up once you've asked your question so other people can hear. Asking questions to better understand what people are saying. So if somebody says something you don't understand, politely ask a question. Make comments and actually contribute to the discussion. I want you to be a part of this discussion. Responding to questions to help people better understand what I'm saying to build on the discussion. So bouncing ideas off each other. Staying on topic, linking my ideas to those of others, and speaking in complete sentences. Okay? And being positive about it. So, on the dedication page, it's the in memory, okay? And if we turn to the dedication page, and you should have the dedication page, but if you don't, I'm going to read it anyways. I want you to follow along as I read the text, and then we're going to talk about the Spanish and English, okay? So it says, to the memory of Esperanza Ortega Munez Hernandez Elgar, mi abuelita. So that is the Spanish part, mi abuelita. Okay, in your notebook, you kind of need a Spanish-English dictionary. We're going to talk about some Spanish words that we might not know. So Spanish, we have mi abuelita, and in English, that means grandma. So this book is dedicated to her grandma, and her grandma's name is Esperanza as well. Okay, so it says, baskets of grapes to my editor, Tracy Mack, for patiently waiting for fruit to fall. Roses to Ozella Bell, Jess Marquez, Don Bell, and Hope Munez Bell for sharing their stories. Smooth stones and yarn dolls to Isabel Schoen, PhD, Leticia Guadrama, Teresa Moir, and Macarena Salas for their expertise and assistance. So we're going to keep up with the Spanish-English dictionary, so make sure you keep those notes neat and keep them all in one spot. I did put the Spanish-English dictionary inside your reading notebook. So you'll notice that it looks like this, Spanish-English dictionary. I've got Spanish, English, other languages. You put the Spanish here and the English here if you're doing your interactive notebook. If you're not, then please fill in your regular notebook. The whole page is fine. And just put it right down the middle. And put mi abuelita on this side and grandma on this side. I wouldn't worry about the other languages right now, okay? If you keep the Spanish and the English, we will be okay with just that. All right, so we are going to go back into my slides here, and we are going to read aloud to find the gist. Now, as far as I got today was just reading an Esperanza book, pages 1 through 3. You do have this. I have put this up on your playlist, so you should have a link to just the first 3 pages so that you can reread this again. Aguascalientes, Mexico, 1924. Our land is alive, Esperanza, said Papa, taking her small hand as they walked through the gentle slopes of the vineyard. Leafy green vines draped the arbors, and the grapes were ready to drop. Esperanza was 6 years old and loved to walk with her papa through the winding rows, gazing up at him and watching his eyes dance with love for the land. This whole valley breathes and lives, he said, sweeping his arm toward the distant mountains that guarded them. It gives us the grapes, and then they welcome us. He gently touched a wild tendril that reached into the row as if it had been waiting to shake his hand. He picked up a handful of earth and studied it. Did you know that when you lie down on the land, you can feel it breathe? That you can feel its heart beating? Papi, I want to feel it, she said. Come. And they walked to the end of the row, where the incline of the land formed a grassy swell. Papa lay down on his stomach and looked up at her, patting the ground next to him. Esperanza smoothed her dress and knelt down like a caterpillar. She slowly inched flat next to him, their faces looking at each other. The warm sun pressed on one of Esperanza's cheeks and the warm earth on the other. She giggled. Shh. he said. You can only feel the earth's heartbeat when you are still and quiet. She swallowed her laughter and after a moment said, I can't hear it, Papi. Aguantante tantito y la fruta cierra en tu mano, he said. Wait a little while and the fruit will fall into your hand. You must be patient, Esperanza. She waited and lay silent, watching Papa's eyes, and then she felt it. Softly at first, a gentle thumping, then stronger, a resounding thud, thud, thud against her body. She could hear it too, the beat rushing in her ears, shoomp, shoomp, shoomp. She stared at Papa, not wanting to say a word, not wanting to lose the sound, not wanting to forget the feel of the heart of the valley. She pressed closer to the ground until her body was breathing with the earth's and with Papa's, the three hearts beating together. She smiled at Papa, not needing to talk, her eyes saying everything, and his smile answered hers, telling her that he knew she had felt it. We are going to pause there because we are going to work on reading aloud and finding the gist for pages 1 through 3 in our next lesson. So please join us again for lesson number 3.